Thank you so much for being here. This is an event that we've been talking about for several months, and it's funny because every time, it's not like we don't have a few other things going on, and so every time we would have a meeting, I was ready to say, I just can't do it. I just don't have. There's not enough time in the day. And then Mindy would say, guess what? We've got celebrity chefs, and they're going to create a fusion cuisine of two countries are at war. Okay. Then she'd say, a week later, I'd be ready to quit again, and she'd say, guess what? The Muscalo Mansion. We've got the Muscalo Mansion. And that's literally how this event came together. And I was reminded both of the desire to quit and the passion to pursue when you're on your purpose. And how when you're really on your purpose and abundance comes into the equation, peace is inevitable. I'm going to tell you just a brief story to kind of set the stage for the evening, and then we'll give our first award. In spite of who I am today, I grew up in an alcoholic family. Both of my parents were alcoholics. My older brother was a drug dealer. My younger brother's a cokehead. I was abused in every way possible. We lived in a 600-square-foot trailer with rats and roaches. And there was an angel in my life named my grandfather. And my grandfather always had these wise words. So I'm going to share with you one of his lessons. A couple of you have heard this story before, but I really want to kick off the night with this story. So what happened is I played sports as a way to survive this very, very tumultuous childhood. And I played basketball and softball. In spite of the fact that I'm not very tall, I was a decent basketball player. I was a point guard, the person who brought the ball down the court. Of course, I had to be in control and call the plays and all that kind of stuff. So made it great. And 11th grade, and it was a championship game. And so we were about 12 points ahead at halftime, which in girls basketball back then, which would have been 1981, was a lot. That's like 50 with the Mavs. And so I was cocky and bragging and check me out, I'm so bad, and just anything to show how cool I was. And the opposing team at halftime made an interesting adjustment. They realized that I was dominant on my right hand, and I would dribble the ball down the right side of the court. And so they set up, after the halftime talking about it, they set up what's called a trap. And if you don't know anything about basketball, when you cross the half-court line, you're not supposed to go back. And so what they would do is the defender would slide up, and then the defender on this side would go over here, and right as I crossed, they would trap me. So the first time I dribble out of bounds, we lose the ball, they score. So needless to say, I don't like to lose, so I was not happy. And so I get the ball, and you can just see that like a bat out of you-know-what, dribbling like a crazy person to the exact same side of the court. Boom, trap. This time, however, I was going to beat them, and so I ran right between them. Now, basketball is not a contact sport, so foul, offensive foul, lose the ball. 6 times I went to the exact same spot, and we lost the ball. 6 times 2, the game is now tied. So the coach, silly guy, takes me out. I don't know why, and I'm, of course, throwing my bottle and kicking the chair and all this kind of stuff, and we lose the game. And I storm out of the gym, and it's all the coach's fault, and, the whole way home, I'm just seething all this anger, and the next day, I went over to my grandfather's house, and my grandfather had an interesting way with words, and so he let me vent and all about how the coach was so terrible, and it was because of him we lost the game. And then all of a sudden, he kind of got this grandpa knows best look on his face, and he had a goatee, and I could just picture him today, and he kind of had his hands like this, and he said, let me ask you a question. The first half of the game, what were you focused on? Scoring. In the second half, what were you focused on? Getting past the defender. He said, you get what you focus on. Of course, my little 16 cocky self kind of went, what? This isn't my fault. And I started getting all, into it. And he said, what were you focused on the first half? Scoring. But when an obstacle was presented, you took your eye off the goal and you put it on the obstacle. You get what you focus on. About that time, I had a revelation. I could dribble with my left hand. All I had to do was shift the ball from the right to the left and go down the left side of the court. Of course, my teammates were on the left side of the court doing this. I'm open, because the defender had moved over here. But what was I focused on? The obstacle. That's how life is. And my grandfather said this, and I will never forget it. He said, you know where I learned this lesson? And by this time, I'm a little humbled. Nowhere. He said, I was a young man in the Great Depression in Racine, Wisconsin. And everywhere I looked, farms were closing down. But about 20% of the people in the Great Depression, their lives were getting better. 80%, their lives were getting worse. And so I wondered, what's the difference? Is it education? Are they married? Do they live on this side of the tracks? Do they have a farm? Couldn't find a common denominator except this. The 20% were focused on opportunity. The 80% were focused on fear. You get what you focus on. Now, I won't tell the rest of the story because we have so many amazing speakers, but that phrase saved my life about 6 months later. And every single day, I lived with my grandfather my last year of school. I get choked up every time I think about it. He'd make me breakfast, and he'd say, what are you focused on? Graduation. And then what? Going to college. So those of you that are here tonight, you're obviously focused on a bigger purpose. And I'm sure that you've come together tonight for peace. So what we would like to do, we're going to present 2 awards to 2 amazing people and let them tell a little bit about their stories. And then Mindy's going to come up with some really amazing words about how life and purpose and vision and courage can come together. Then we're going to tell you about the company that we're launching. We're going to celebrate this week of peace. And then you're going to go create peace on purpose.